So we all know by now that this Nationals team hasn't been able to do one thing in particular, and that is hit for power. And there are two power hitters on this team that are going to be getting called to the principal's office right after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Ryan Clary, of this podcast called Locked On Nationals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day. And obviously, the Nationals get it going with the New York Mets tonight. And I plugged two hitters that are going to be getting called to the principal's office. And to help me with that is my assistant principal, Tobi Altizer from 106.7 The Fan. And Tobi watches the Nats. He's a loyal follower of the team, just like we all are. And I think there is no one to have this conversation. I think there's no one better to have this conversation with than Tobi Altizer. So, Tobi, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I've never been called a principal before. I've never
assistant
been in
principal.
Assistant principal. I've never been in that role before, so I'm excited to see what we can get into today.
Yeah. So, I said this, and you already know who those two players are, but this Nationals team does not like to hit for power, and the two power bats that this Nationals team does have on the roster that has a lot of expectations with them is Dominic Smith and, most importantly, Joey Meneses. And at this point, these two guys just haven't been able to get it done at the plate so far. And I saw with Andrew Golden's story the other day on Dominic Smith making his return to the Mets tonight. And so far, he has 17 hits with the Washington Nationals and 17 singles. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, it's a hit is a hit. He's getting a hit. No, it's not. Because you're a power hitter. You are expecting, you want to be expected to hit a home run, to hit doubles and get all these extra base hits to try to score runs, which this Nationals team hasn't been able to do so far.
Yeah, when I look at Dominic Smith, the thing that's so disappointing for me is how long it took Davey to move him out of the two-hole. I saw Jesse Doherty of the Post put out a piece saying it took Davey forever to convince Soto that the number two hole is where you put the best hitter, and Dominic Smith stuck there for quite a while. Luckily, Davey finally moved him out of it. But the thing that drove me nuts in the weekend series against the Twins was Saturday. I don't know if it's just because there was a late scratch. They changed it. Initially, Joey Meneses was going to DH and Dom Smith at first base, which I'm fine with. But then he flipped it, and Dom Smith should never DH. He's in there for his glove. And if you want to leave him in there for his glove and bat him seventh, I'm totally fine with that because he's been very good defensively. He helps out the young guys in Abrams and Garcia in the infield and helps out Candelario at third. So I'm fine with that if you're leaving him in there for his glove. But don't bat him any higher than I would say seventh. And most definitely do not DH him because, like you said, he's got 17 hits on the year, 0 extra base hits. I can't have that out of a DH. I can find someone else to at least give me something in that designated hitter spot.
Exactly, and that is the point that's so frustrating with this. Dominic Smith is actually a very good defensive first baseman, and I've been saying that he needs to be in that defensive lineup just about every day, especially when you have guys like Josiah Gray and Mackenzie Gore on the mound. I want to make them feel as comfortable as possible. But when you are this poor at the plate so far, it brings up the question to how valuable is that the defensive side of things, considering that he just can't get extra base hits. He can't move runners at this point. And so that is what I'm trying to balance, because I want him out there be just for the simple reason that he is a solid defender. But I can't take this anymore of all these just 17 singles. Come on. It's been 3 weeks now. You don't have anything else but a single up to this point.
I'm fine with him in there defensively just because you have CJ Abrams and Luis Garcia in there. And right now they've shown that they can be solid defensive players. So maybe that changes down the road. But for the time being, I'm fine with him being in there basically as just a defensive first baseman. But, I mean, that can't continue to be the case where he's not even getting doubles. He's never going to get a triple. He's not somebody who's running fast, but he's not hitting it over the fence. Like you said, I mean, this Nationals team is lacking power, and you've got a couple of guys that you expect to be able to at least drive the ball in the gap. And, I made this comment. We were watching a game the other day. Dom Smith is too big a dude to just be dinking little singles in past the infield in front of the outfield. Like, that's fine every now and then, an RBI situation, a guy in runner in scoring position. That's awesome. Drive the run in. But I need you to make some real noise with the bat by driving the ball in the gap, and he hasn't done it.
Seriously. And, the Nationals sit right now, they're at about a 339 team slugging percentage, which is not good. And then we're dead last in home runs with 10. While the Tampa Bay Rays have, let me check again, 48 home runs through 23 games. And the Nationals had 10 through 21 games. Now, let's say this. The Rays are a team that, this is a record hot streak that they're on right now, obviously with all the home runs, and this is not going to be sustainable for them. But to see that gap, to see that they are hitting 4+ home runs a game, and the Nationals can't even get 1 home run per 2 games up to this point. It is just a sad, sad scenario for this team. And also, not even to make it all about Dominic Smith, Joey Meneses was someone that had expectations going to this year after what he did in the middle of last August all the way through the end of 2022. And honestly, I did have some pretty high expectations for him, considering the fact that not only did this guy do it last year, but look at his minor stats throughout his career. It was pretty regular that he finished with that around an 800 OPS, which is an above average hitter. So when I look at Joey Meneses now, and that he only has 1 home run on the year, he's kind of doing the same. He's got a couple doubles here and there, but he's not doing the job that we need him to do, which is drive in runs and get that slugging number up to be able to afford the opportunity to score runs. Even he can score runs and create opportunities for this Nationals team that desperately needs them at all times.
And when you look at the Nationals lineup, how confident are you that guys are going to be able to string together hits, 3 and 4 hits to drive guys in? I mean, I'm not.
I'm not either.
The thing is, you need guys that are in the middle to be able to hit for power, preferably hitting the ball over the fence, but at least getting doubles and just driving the ball in the gap, like I said before. And you saw the other day with the Twin series, the Nationals are down. Joey Meneses hits a home run, and it jumpstarts the offense. And those are the sort of things that you need, where if nothing else is going right, nobody can get on base, nobody can get string hits together, then all of a sudden, someone hits one over the fence, and all of a sudden, the pitcher's a little bit rattled, and the offense starts to click a little bit. You need that power, and especially, like you said, out of Dom Smith, but specifically out of Joey Meneses because of what you saw last season. And to be honest with you, going into this year, it's not like there were many hitters on this lineup that are going to be projected to be, I would even say, good to great hitters. Probably not even good hitters this year. But Meneses, the way he played last year, was elite. Yeah. And so you expected at least for him to be good/great, and he hasn't even been that.
Yeah, and that is the frustrating part of just watching this team up to this point because, like, yes, we know that we weren't going to be winning a lot of games this year, but if you look at individual success, you're going to be counting on guys like a C.J. Abrams, Joey Meneses, and maybe even Dominic Smith. Like, I was kind of buying into the fact that Dominic Smith could turn her around here, just for the simple fact that he's going to be playing everyday first base. He's going to have those consistent at-bats. Maybe he can find his power again, because that is the issue with him. Dating back to 2021, yes, he had opportunities taken away from just simple, better production from other guys like Pete Alonso, and they moved him out to the outfield and stuff, and it just wasn't really working for him. But now this year, I thought that he was going to have those opportunities and really kind of find his power tool once again, especially in that right field gap for Nationals Park. I thought that would be pretty friendly with him. And at this point, he's got no home runs so far. He hasn't been able to find the power swing. He's not even really hitting the ball all too hard. And it's just kind of concerning at this point of the season, just because it's like, God, Like, this is what you could be if you just to simple it down for you and just stroke the ball. I don't know.
Well, and the disappointing part is a lot of these moves were made. Maybe Dom Smith didn't fall into this, but I think a Candelario could fall into this, where Mike Rizzo looked at it and said, let's do a short-term deal, and if they look like they're good, we can deal them at the deadline and continue to build the farm system. And Rizzo did this last year with Nelson Cruz, and we saw how that worked out. It didn't. And it seems like it's going to be a similar thing with Dom Smith, where you expected maybe he could find a little bit of a resurgence in his career where he could hit the long ball a little bit and someone would be like, you know what? We'll take a chance on this guy to help us out. It's not going to be the case.
No, not going to be the case at all. Well, Toby, you brought up Jeimer Candelario, and I do want to get into some surprises this year for the Washington Nationals, as Jeimer has been very solid up to this point. Best hitter up to this point by far, in my opinion. We'll go in deep into some numbers there. But before we do that, I got to tell you guys about our new friends over on BetterHelp. And here's the thing. During the pandemic, you really got to know your true self. But this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And as I said, the pandemic, you really got to know yourself loud and clear. Therapy is all about depending on your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. And here's the thing, guys. Therapy is a good thing to have, in my opinion, to talk things out. And my friends at BetterHelp is that place for you. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. And now we get back into it with my guy, Tobi Altizer from 106.7 The Fan, and also District on Deck. You can catch his articles over on there, as I know you wrote about Josiah Gray just a few days ago, and we're going to get into Josiah Gray a little bit later on in the show, because my guy Tobi loves Josiah Gray just like I do. So we're going to get into that. But as I said, I do believe that when we're watching this Nationals team, it's by far and away up to this point that Jeimer Candelario is the best Nationals hitter on this roster. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even close, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, it's the thing is, like, he's productive, but he's also been fairly consistent thus far. Other guys have had maybe a 2 or 3 game stretch where you're like, okay, maybe they're finding it. I mean, we just talked about Meneses. There's a couple games here and there where you're like, okay, he's hitting the ball the other way. He's making solid contact. He's finding a way to put the ball in play. All right, maybe he's found it. And then he goes out and has an 0-for-4 performance the next day. So you're like, well, maybe not. So at least with Candelario, he's found a way to get the bat going, and he's continually hitting the baseball.
And that's like, so this is what I've been preaching for this team. It's the little things, and the little things like consistent. Like, are you consistently getting out there and putting up good at-bats? Then, okay, check that box. I think that is a good thing. Candelario has been doing that up to this point, and also he has 3 home runs, which for this team, that is a ton of home runs.
He's a slugger.
He is a slugger. That's what we call him down here. But that's really funny. God, slugger for 3 home runs through 22 games, or however many it is. That's so sad. But Jeimer Candelario was honestly a big surprise to me. And, you know, a lot of people talked up his 2021 leading the National League in doubles. But last year was really rough for him, so I was a little skeptical about what he could do. But up to this point, Jeimer has been the biggest surprise for this team. He has been our best hitter by far and away in both power, getting on base, and just putting up quality at-bats, which this team so desperately needs all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a weird thing to root for when you do these sort of things, but honestly, you want him to continue this so that he can go play for a contender in the second half of the season, and Mike Rizzo can continue to build this farm system. And, you know, these are one of those types of moves that Rizzo has liked to make over the last couple of years, where he signs a guy to a 1-year deal and says, look, if you can be productive enough, you'll go play for a contender. If not, I mean, you're stuck with us for the whole year. But he found a way to bring in a guy that's had a little bit of a track record. And the thing that's most surprising to me, I didn't know Candelario was a good defender, but he's been very good, borderline great. I mean, he's, I think, second in the National League or all MLB in defensive runs saved at third base. That's impressive what he's been able to do defensively.
Yeah, and that was a part of his game toward the last few years. Not a lot of people were touting about that. And honestly, maybe, and this is where, like, yes, the numbers are there for defensive run saves, which I think is probably the metric to use when judging how a defender is and just kind of seeing how good they are. But when I look at his stats from the years past, he was never really a solid defender. He was average, but at times he was below average. And that's what a lot of Tigers fans complained about. But I also think having Michael Franco at this time last year being our third baseman, did that just really lower our expectations? Or is Jeimer actually like a legit third baseman? Because at times I look at him like he's doing barehand Nolan Arenado throws across his body. And I'm like, God, like that, I haven't seen this since 2019 with Anthony Rendon.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some plays where I've been really surprised. He makes the very difficult ones look fairly routine. The ones that I can think of are where he's playing a little bit in towards the grass and someone rockets one over 100 miles an hour off the bat, and he just picks it one hop, throw over to first, no problem to Dom Smith. Those are the sort of things that, you know, if you're just casually watching the game and not paying attention, you won't even notice because he's just making the very difficult plays look routine. And I think that's the marquee of a good defender, is being able to make the routine plays routinely and make the difficult plays look fairly easy.
Yeah, and you know what? With last year, now looking at the defensive side of things, this Nationals defense up to the trade deadline last year was atrocious. And like literally atrocious. Looking at all the numbers, defensive runs saved, it was bad for this team. But now you're starting to see it. And I think it's having a big effect on this pitching staff as well. When you look at Josiah Gray or even a Trevor Williams, and Chad Kuhl has had a quality start here and there. And obviously Mackenzie Gore, I think, gives you a chance to win every single day that he's going to be pitching. But you're starting to see the confidence in this rotation now because of this defense. And we talked about guys like Dominic Smith and Candelario, who are offseason acquisitions. And Dominic Smith, we expected him to play a clean first base. But with Candelario, we didn't really have that many expectations for him. We just kind of knew that, yeah, this guy was DFA'd by the Tigers for a reason, obviously. But now he's coming in, he's playing a solid third base defensively. And at the plate, he's been an average hitter for this team, that is a big ask to do.
Yeah, and it's been surprising to see how good the infield defense has been. If there's one thing that the Nationals are great at this season, and it might be the only thing they're great at this season, they're good at turning double plays. Yeah. And part of that is there's a lot of guys on base with the pitching staff, but part of that is the infield defense has been good. Obviously, Candelario has been one of the best third basemen in baseball. Abrams and Garcia, now that you don't have to see Garcia at shortstop and he's more natural second base, both of those guys, I think, are above average defenders. I wouldn't say plus yet, but they're above average. And obviously, Dominic Smith is a very good first baseman. I think the thing to watch, and I just noticed this the other day by looking at some defensive run save metrics, the outfield defense, however, has not been great.
Yeah.
And specifically Victor Robles in center field has been very poor, which is disappointing because he got off to that hard start hitting. And so you thought maybe he had turned a corner. He's kind of gone back to the old Victor Robles at the plate. And if he's not helping you defensively and he's making mental errors and Davey's calling him out on bunts and different things, I don't know what his future with the Nationals looks like if he's not making defensive impact and he's going to go back to his old ways at the plate.
Yeah, you know what? With Victor Robles, I mean, obviously I was out of town this weekend, as you know, Toby. So I didn't really get to watch too much of the Nationals this weekend. But of course, I tuned in. And the first thing I saw was Victor Robles put down a bunt in one of the, I'm going to just be painfully honest, one of the dumbest plays I have ever seen. In a terrible situation to bunt, Victor Robles put it down, and it was just mind-boggling to think, like, this guy had it all figured out 2.5 weeks ago. We were talking about how, is Victor Robles finally here, considering he's only 24, 25 years old? Like, this guy still could develop. I had no faith in him developing, and I kind of knew that he was going to come crashing down to earth. But he was doing pretty good. And now, all of a sudden, he's lost his swing. he's kind of starting to fall back to his own ways. He's chasing a lot more. And the defensive side of things, he's not even as valuable as he once was. Now, I still believe in his glove defensively, but the metrics aren't really helping him out too much.
Yeah, and that's the disappointing part, because with Robles, you always just assumed he was a solid center fielder defensively, and maybe you weren't going to get a whole lot out of him at the plate, but he'd go on a couple stretches a year where you're like, all right, I can live with that out of this guy batting in the 8 or the 9 hole. But I mean, he had a very good approach on the season with swinging at only strikes and changing up his approach, so he was more looking towards contact as opposed to trying to drive the ball out of the ballpark. And it started out well, and now it's just gone back to the old ways. And the thing that's disappointing is his lack of awareness at times bunting. Like, I go back to the game where C.J. Abrams had second stolen standing up without a throw, and you have Robles foul off a bunt attempt on the first pitch of the at-bat. Those are the sort of things you cannot have. You're taking away from some of the young guys excelling. And to be honest with you, with Robles, there really aren't better options at this point, to be honest. But, I mean, I don't know how much longer Davey wants to put up with some of the stuff that comes with Victor Robles being in the lineup every day.
Absolutely. And you know what, Toby? We had this conversation with the lineup. It was much needed. We both kind of just needed this venting session as, you know, we won 2 of the 3 games with the Twins this weekend. But, you know, it just wasn't the wins that, like, yes, they strung together a couple really good performances offensively down in Minnesota or up in Minnesota, whichever way you look at it. But at the end of the day, this team has still not been living up to the standards offensively. But next, Toby, Josiah Gray pitches tonight. It's a good day. But the big question is, will there be run support? We're going to get to that. We're going to tackle that and what Josiah could do tonight. But before we do that, I got to tell you guys about our new sponsor at So Rare. And So Rare is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards that help you so much. And honestly, it's such a cool thing knowing that Juan Soto and Julio Rodriguez are also ambassadors of this project. And here's the thing that you guys should experience for your own. You get to set a lineup playing the game and the players that drafted on their local team and what they like about the experience. So Rare MLB game weeks happen twice weekly in a span of a 3 to 4 day cycle. And it is just such a cool thing to do to kind of kill some time. And it is something that I love to do on my weekdays. So head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team a free player card, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. And now we get back into it with Tobi Altizer from 106.7 The Fan. And as we kind of said, Toby, Josiah Gray will be making the start tonight. And the big question is, will they get run support?
Well, I mean, as of this taping, we still don't know who's taking the mound for the Mets. It should have been Max Scherzer. And if that were the case, then I would have said no. But his bogus suspension is still going on. So maybe they find a way. Maybe it's a bullpen game for the Mets, or I have no idea what they're going to do. Maybe they find a way to squeak a run across. But the encouraging part from Josiah Gray has been seeing him just be consistent. Ever since he started that first game and gave up a couple of long balls, and then you knew that he was going to have a good season, or at least he was going to have a decent stretch. When he was set up for failure going to Colorado in his second start, I got plagued by the long ball, and he goes out there and pitches a 1-run ball game. That's the kind of stuff you want to see out of Gray. You want to see it more consistently. So I don't want to say that, you know, he's taken the next step yet, because we saw stretches last year like he's had over the last couple of starts. Need to see it a little bit more, but very encouraged by what I've seen from Josiah Gray so far. Hopefully the offense helps him out, though.
Seriously, the offense is a really important part to this, obviously, with run support. But looking at some of the numbers with Josiah Gray, like, someone DM'd me the other day and was like, well, hitters are actually, their batting average is way higher on Josiah Gray than what it has been in recent years. And it's like, well, yeah, but his problem wasn't really a batting average. And honestly, like with this Nationals team, this is a perfect example. we get a lot of singles. We get a lot of hits, not a lot of runs. So right now, batters are batting .280 against Josiah Gray up to this point, and he's only got 16 strikeouts through 21 2/3. But his main issue over the years has obviously been the long ball, which he has limited a lot up to this point from what we're used to. So I think people are starting to see what Josiah could do, because you can make the case that it still hasn't all clicked yet, which it really hasn't. But you're already starting to see the results in a lower ERA. He's feeling more comfortable out there, and Davey is putting more trust into him as we've seen him go a little bit later in games than we have over the last 2 seasons.
Well, and this is why when you try to compare Gore and Gray, they're 2 totally different pitchers. Totally. I think Gore's stuff is electric. He can play in the zone. He can strike out guys. And for the most part, he's just better than the guy at the plate. That's not necessarily the case with Gray. His stuff isn't going to blow you away. But the thing that I think stood out most to me so far this season, last year, his hard hit percentage was 36.9%. Guys were just roping the baseball off of him. So far this year, that percentage is down 8.5% to 28.4%. That's the stuff that you want to see out of Josiah Gray. He's going to give up more hits than Gore because Gore's got more electric stuff. But if he can find a way to have soft contact and make it so that the ball is on the ground and staying in the infield, allow the defense to do its job, you got to be encouraged by what Josiah Gray's shown you so far.
Do the Nationals get a win tonight, Toby?
I'm going to say no. I think the best bet on most nights is to say no, so I'm going to say no.
I get it. You know what? Why not? I'm going to say yes. Josiah Gray. I'm going to take my chances on Josiah Gray having a good night. Maybe the Nationals needed a day off. They had a nice little weekend up in Minnesota. It's going to be a little warmer in New York than what it was, so maybe they get a home run or a long ball or 2. You never really know, Toby. So thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. And again, we appreciate it as always. So Toby, now let's get a final score. Put your name on it. Let's bet $5 on it.
Oh, let's go National score 1. Let's go with the Mets 4.
Hey, Josiah will take 1 run. Are you kidding me? He's going to love that 1 run.
Hey, 2 real things before we wrap up here. Who would have thought at this point in the season, what are we, 21 games in, that the Nationals rotation would have 3 starters with an ERA under 4?
Stunning.
Crazy.
Stunning.
Trevor Williams has been good.
Very
the second thing, I was talking with Vic the other day about this. This is why the Cade Cavalli injury is so disappointing. At least before, it would have been 3 out of every 5 days you really looked forward to.
Oh,
because it was Gray, Gore, Cavalli. Now it's 2 out of every 5. And it's kind of disappointing that it's like 40% of the games you bookmark. The rest are like, eh.
Yeah, I know. It was Chad cool. And Trevor Williams, like he's been, to my knowledge, he's been great up to this point. I had really pretty low expectations for him heading into this year. Just because, like, you know, I've seen it in
he's
the past.
The ace right now. He's got the lowest ERA.
He's the ace. He's been really good so far, so I got to give him props for it. But again, thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. So tomorrow we'll be talking about Josiah Gray's start. And Toby, I always appreciate you jumping in, man. So you have a good day as well.
You too, man. See ya.
Thank you. And thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen. I'll talk to you on the flip side. Have a good one.